say definitively that religions are all bullshit.
Welcome to Brainstorm.
We have the explicit tag for a reason.
This is a base level argument to a higher level morality.
I get paid to science?
To science as much as one can science.
What the hell was my point?
Trigger warning. The Brainstorm podcast will criticize your most cherished beliefs. We attack nonsense in all its forms and discuss difficult subjects. If you peddle pseudoscience, supernatural woo, or religious dogma, then this is not your safe place. This is the home of hardcore skepticism.
All right, and we are back. To those listening live or to our patrons, welcome back. For those listening weekly, welcome to the Shift to Reason Radio, the Brainstorm production that tries to educate and inform. We'll take current events and important skeptical topics and try to analyze them critically. Remember, we're live on Spreaker.com every second Friday, and today is November 24th, 2017. I'm still joined by Angela.
Hello.
And Lisa.
It's me.
With the always amazing Dave doing sound.
Still amazing.
And we kept one of our guests, Aaron, from the Embrace the Void podcast.
Yeah, how's it going? Sadly, GW has to get home, which I understand.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. We kept you guys for an hour and a half already. And
I got nowhere to be. I'm already home, and I would, be doing the same ridiculous bullshit and drinking anyway, so let's do it.
Sweet. It's good to have you.
May as well be doing it with other people.
So what do you want to talk about now?
Well, I've got a quick little rant here. We're going to probably try and maybe we'll play our bumper for the religious nuttery. Do we have that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to play our religious nuttery bumper, and then I got a rant.
Get comfy.
Defending the atheist movement, and then we have a story about some kick-ass atheists. So yeah, let's play that bumper.
Cornerstone, this might be new to some of you. Scripture says that even our righteous deeds are as filthy rags to God. So even the good things that you do, even things like feeding the hungry and clothing the poor, and taking in widows and orphans, as nice as those things are, if not done from the place of obedience to and a relationship with God, are completely worthless and disgusting to God. If you're not daily walking in a place of relationship to God, then the news that we have to bring you is that you're on your way to hell right now.
All right. So that's the religious nuttery bumper, but this isn't quite religious nuttery. I'm going to spend a little bit of time of defending the movement that we belong to that I often spend time criticizing. I know a lot of people consider the skeptic and atheist community to be multiple communities, but usually when I discuss it, I talk about it as one group. I've done shows discussing sexual harassment and the apologists for it in the atheist and skeptic circles. I've posted about racism and sexism in our community, and I've criticized the vehement anti-Muslim bigotry that goes on in atheist circles. These are all very big problems, and they need to be addressed and dealt with in the same way that any community might deal with them. But we can't lose sight of the good that comes from atheist and skeptic activism around the world. I'm hoping that this doesn't come across as a not all atheists type rant. I want to ignore the bullshit skepticism towards social movements that seems to be taking hold in North American skepticism and on YouTube, and focus on the social activism that is being done in the name of secularism. So here are a few groups that are doing positive work. Love or hate Richard Dawkins. He's not the only person who works for the Dawkins Foundation. And they are an organization that's mission is to spread scientific literacy and secularism. They head up movements like the Openly Secular campaign, the Teacher Institute for Evolutionary Science, and the Subtitles Project. Openly Secular intends to eliminate discrimination and increase acceptance by getting secular people, including atheists, freethinkers, agnostics, humanists, and non-religious people, to be open. And the Teacher Institute for Evolutionary Science is a resource for middle school teachers to get the tools they need to teach evolution and to answer criticism of evolution. The Subtitles Project is a project meant to add subtitles to science videos to make them more accessible to people from all over the world. The Clergy Project. I recently interviewed Leslie Mayer regarding her documentary film on this organization, and the Clergy Project helps religious leaders who no longer believe to cope with the conflicts that come from being a non-believer whose well-being and income rely on being a religious leader. They also help people who have chosen to leave their jobs as religious leaders and find their way as secular people. The FFRF, the Freedom from Religion Foundation in the U.S., is an organization that promotes the separation of church and state and actively fights battles in court on that front. They also provide educational content and provide support for people who are facing discrimination based on religious privilege. American Atheist is very similar and is effective in other ways. The head of American Atheists is David Silverman, who has been on Fox News a number of times defending atheists and atheism against the views of the religious right. He also happens to be killing it in his stance against bigotry and intolerance. The Canadian Secular Alliance does some similar work here in Canada and is working towards changing our current school systems from Catholic to a one system. From Catholic and public to one system for everybody. There are great support groups too. Recovering from Religion is a group that's solely dedicated to supporting people who have left religion. Grief Beyond Belief, whose sole purpose is to support people who have lost loved ones who don't have religious faith to help them through the grieving process. There's the Secular Therapy Project that is meant to connect people who need therapy or counseling with secular therapists who don't push religion on their clients. And that's just a few of the organizations that are doing positive work. There are also great atheist and skeptic podcasters and YouTubers that are doing great positive work and providing supportive content to help skeptics and atheists deal with a world that is overwhelmingly religious and unskeptical. Just to list a few, the Scathing Atheist Crew, they do that on multiple shows, Cognitive Dissonance, Serious Inquiries Only, the Utah Outcasts, No Religion Required, The Thinking Atheist, Women Beyond Belief. For YouTubers, there's Christy Winters, Aaron Rabi, Matt Dillahunty, Dark Matter 2525, Mr. Deity, Steve Shives, Soldier of Science, and a ton more. There are great blogs by people like The Friendly Atheist, The Graffiti Wall by Alex Jules, pretty much anything written by Jessica Chow, Sincere Carabo, Trav Mamone, or Stephanie Zvan. My point is merely that there are great people doing great work in atheist and skeptical circles, and that we often get hung up on the troubles in our community. And I don't want to always emphasize the bad stuff. Sometimes there is really, really good stuff too. That's me. That's it.
Nice rant.
Well said. Thank you.
Doesn't really emphasize the horribleness of the timeline, though.
No, it doesn't. People pushing back against them.
By striking Dawkins off your list, for starters.
Dawkins, the person, I don't appreciate. Dawkins, the foundation, seems to have a few things going on that are not bad.
Do you have infinite resources?
Infinite? No.
I'm assuming you have a scarce number of resources. Yeah. And the scarce number of resources you have could be donated to not the Dawkins Fund. If you wanted to associate your resources with a name that doesn't blackball people who accuse people of inappropriate behavior.
Fair enough. No, that's fair. There, like I say, there's the Clergy Project is Daryl Ray. He does that. The Secular Therapy Project, FFRF. There's lots of really good organizations.
Yeah, the FFRF especially. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying in principle. I think that secular atheists could do a much better job of accepting appropriate criticism while maintaining the fact that they are better than the alternative.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There is certainly a knee-jerk defense of atheists and atheism as a group that I feel is unwarranted. We tend to, I don't know, kind of wash over the mistakes and and shitty behavior of some of the people that are considered our leaders.
Yeah.
And I
who have engaged in appropriate behavior towards women and who we know about this fact and yet who are still prevalent within the community.
Yes. Yeah, there are definitely.
What do the female identifying individuals feel about this particular issue?
I was just thinking, well, it's not really a female-oriented answer, but you seem to be bringing this up like, okay, well, atheists are terrible, so I'm not going to be an atheist, like as if like this is some sort of like logical causal relationship. But when in fact, whether the atheist movement as a whole is full of assholes and whatever tit grabbers, like it doesn't actually mean there's a God. So as if you think there's no God, then you're an atheist, and it doesn't matter if there's an atheist movement that you don't want to identify with or not. I don't know. I feel like people always get lost in that argument. Like, well, you shouldn't be an atheist because then you won't be a good person, or because you'll have to be associated with those guys. Or no, you shouldn't be an atheist if you don't think there's a God. Otherwise, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's lost sometimes.
There's an important community thing in there where it's like all of us who agree that the universe is vast and uncaring still need to come up with a morality that we can all agree to.
No, we don't. We don't have to come up with something that we can all agree to.
I think
we're atheists. We are like herding cats. Like we just we are only linked by that one belief, or the one lack of belief.
Like, all human beings need to come up with something that we all agree to, morally speaking, like to have a social contract.
No. All human beings should do this in order to create a better world. We don't need to.
Well, should and need, I think, in this situation are interchangeable, because I think that like we are by nature social creatures, and like as liberals, we want to have a baseline agreed upon morality that we all agree to within our society.
You're never going to have an atheist pope who's like, this is what we're going to do, and we're all going to do this, and all the atheists fall in line. That's just antithetical to being an atheist. Not going to happen.
Right. But what we can do is teach atheists that, like, here are the arguments for having an objective moral realism, even if you don't believe in God. Here's how you push back on all of the bullshit arguments that, like, theists make about how if you don't have God, you can't have morality. That's fucking bullshit. Here are the answers to that question, so that within the community, we can build an ethical framework that improves the quality of life of atheists and teaches other atheists how to push back against all of the bullshit about religious morality.
Yeah, I think that's fair. As a female in the atheist community, it's kind of discouraging to have a similar construct to what I left back in organized religion. There's a lot of white dudes that are, wagging their dicks around, and it's just like,
well, I don't wag it all.
Cory, I have to say this. Cory is like, I don't lump Cory in with this because I don't think I would be associated with this podcast.
But not all atheists.
Yeah.
He's not all dick waggers.
He's not all dick waggers.
But like, you're right. Like the room that was full of people cheering for Sargon Carl, like, was full of men, and it was full of white men who wanted to parse the rhetoric of whether or not this counts as proper harassment or not, when like all normal rational human beings see this as the antithesis of proper moral dialogue.
Yeah. And it's kind of depressing that there's this, like you said, the white lash, but there's also the butthurt dudes lash. Because it's like, oh, women are getting elected. Oh, women are starting to say stuff and we're starting to listen. Oh, they're coming forward because we're being fucking treated like shit. And fucking, oh, I didn't do that. Like, fuck you. Shut. You don't get to talk right now. It's just frustrating as a woman to be like, hear all these butthurt white dudes that are like.
Is there anything better than Angela around?
There's nothing better than Angela in general, actually.
You guys are nice to me. Thank you.
And like you guys asked in like 2 segments ago, a million years ago, when I was more sober, about like the innocent men who get falsely accused, right?
Yes.
And like that's the main concern. But like the men who are bringing that, like, let me be honest with you from a male perspective, right? Most men are cataloging through the behavior they engaged in and thinking, well, here are the situations where if someone really wanted to say so, this is inappropriate. Yeah. And, like, if I was being straight up honest with you, I can tell you the situation in which I did something inappropriate and went too far and, like, got consent but in a way that wasn't acceptable. And, like, that's not okay. And I bet, if we're being honest here, like, Cory could tell you a similar situation. And, like, what we need to do
is being generous, to be honest.
Right. We need to be honest about the fact that, like, even those of us who are very feminist and pro-women got brought into a patriarchy and need to, like, work our way out of it and need to, like, assess that inappropriate behavior and never engage in it again and not feel compelled to defend serial inappropriate behaviors because we know that in our heart of hearts there's at least one situation in which someone could say you really fucked up and we could be like, yeah, that's totally true.
And that's that. I've been thinking quite a bit about this lately. And if the people who came forward and that I think that I had harmed had come forward and said, Cory, you harmed me, I would have no choice but to be like, yes, I harmed you, and I don't know what to do to make that right. Like there is no way to make that right. And
would you say it was because they were in awe of your greatness in your apology speech?
What would the women say though? Like, what would y'all say? Like, how do you address this? Right?
Like, as a woman, how do you address
if somebody came to me and said that thing? Let's say the sexist doctor at work came to me and said, I'm really sorry that I never listened to what you say. And I only ever take the advice of the dudes, and I embarrass you in front of others and talk about your body in front of your coworkers. I am really sorry. I'd probably be like, thank you, that's great. Don't fucking do it again. Like that. I don't know. Like, but I would be appreciative, I think.
We were talking about, like, spectrum, right? So, like, if some guy who is engaged in inappropriate behavior proactively says, I've engaged in inappropriate behavior and I accept that, and I'm gonna seek counseling and put money towards survivorship programs and, like, be proactive in the future about addressing these kinds of issues and never engage in this behavior again. Like, isn't that the behavior we want to incentivize?
Absolutely. I think so. Yeah. And to do it proactively, I think would be, like, rather than, oh, you got caught and now you have to do it, but to do it proactively would be nice.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, right. In medicine, sometimes errors happen, and it's interesting because even though the lawyers in the hospital, if you have an error happen, they don't want you to apologize to the patient for having had the error. Studies find that the patient's like 10 times less likely to sue if you actually do apologize, and you just, because they don't actually want money, most of the time. They just want you to be like, I fucked up. We know we fucked up. We are really sorry. We really care about the pain that we've caused you and your loved one and your family. And we will do it. We will try to make sure this never happens to anyone else. And these are the steps we're taking to make sure that never happens. That's what people want. Right?
Yeah. Right.
And if you do that preemptively before they have to start suing you and getting lawyers and blah, 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 you can avoid a lot of lawsuits in a medical scenario, which is interesting.
Interesting.
I wonder... I've considered this in my own life. Is the idea that you would contact somebody that you've harmed in your life, is that a re-traumatizing event?
I would say it would depend on the event, right? Like it could be very triggering,
depending on what and depending on if they remember it to the same extent,
in the same way that you are remembering it, I suppose.
Like, I think, or if they've moved past it in such a way, or like I don't know, because I've had experiences in my life that are dodgy at best, and I mean, at the time, okay, because of my sheltered upbringing, I didn't view them the way that I do now after looking at them through a different lens. And now it's like, oh, that's what that was. I kind of realized the extent to which I was treated badly. And I think if somebody came back to me and said, you know, I realize what I did to you was not good. I'm sorry. I think, I don't know. I don't know what I would do with that. I don't know.
I can speak from the experience of when I used to do the 12-step thing back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, directly correlated, obviously different kind of harm, but you get such mixed reactions from people when you come back and start opening up old wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right, you're talking about the apology step, right?
Yeah, because there's the making amends step.
That's right.
And I've done that. I mean, I've experienced that with people who are very close to me, people who are not so close to me, people who I used to be really good friends with. And there's times when it went really well. And it was fantastic, and it was very bonding, and became very good friends after that, There's other times when these people are like, why the fuck are you talking about this? And I think that's where it's hard to discern every time, like who you can approach and who you can't. But at the very least, I guess I learned that maybe I need to I need to bring this up better, like in a way that's like, hey, I have something I would like to talk to you about. You don't have to, but if you want,
Mm-hmm. But without saying what it is, how do you?
Well, that's just it. Even then, sometimes I don't know.
So did you find that it was dependent on the severity of what you'd done to that person, or no?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, it was like everybody just had such random reactions to it. Like it was so hard to predict who was going to be okay with things. And
what if you explained it as something that was a part of your recovery process?
I did explain that. Yeah.
Okay.
And that sometimes didn't matter.
I've had family members make amends to me in AA. And it's always so fucking awkward. Like,
it is awkward.
You know what? Like, it's like, and to die, that was a way bigger deal to you than it was to me. It's all good.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, and there obviously were certain things that came out of that were very, very good. I have a very good relationship with an ex because of that. Like we're fine. We're very good actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then all that crazy shit that we did got resolved. Like it's over. But yeah, I mean, I would say that the need to do that with people is very, very limited. And
I think that's a good response.
The some of the stuff that comes up in my mind is from my relationship with my ex-wife, because it was, as much as it was a toxic fucking relationship, or else it would have lasted, right?
Yeah.
Hence the divorce part.
Hence the divorce part. But so I often wonder, like, through this series of transformations that I've gone through over the last few years, these changes on ideas, should I at some point approach her and say, hey, I'm really sorry about the way that I did these things?
Well, you probably know her pretty well. How would she react?
To be honest, I have no idea.
I would like to add, sometimes, like, I had a conflict with somebody I lived with a long time ago, and managed to, after I realized that things had gone sour and I wanted to kind of make amends and just be like, I'm sorry this happened. It was kind of shitty. It wasn't a sexual assault type thing, but it was just, misunderstandings and stuff. And I'll never forget the look on her face. She was expecting an apology from me, and I didn't feel like I was 100% in the wrong. And it was very memorable for me to be in that situation where I wanted her to be like, yeah, I was a dick to you. I'm sorry. And there's a quote that goes to something to the effect of, sometimes you just have to accept an apology that you're never going to get. Like, if there's that hard, and I experience that in my life on a regular basis just because of the stepmom gig and all the baggage that can come with that. there's stuff that I have to deal with that I'm not responsible for. And I think that it's important to keep that in mind. Like sometimes you're not necessarily apologizing to that person for that person. You're apologizing for yourself. And it's a matter of, okay, so
are you apologizing to make yourself feel better? Is that the thing?
Yeah.
Like that's
and I mean I've tried to reconnect with people that, you know, I felt kind of bad about how things went, and it just never happened. It never materialized the way that I thought it would, and it was kind of like, oh fuck, this is weird.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you slink back like, oh, okay.
That's something that in AA they say, like to not, like you can do it for selfish reasons, right? Just to relieve yourself, to make yourself feel better. And I kind of agreed with that idea. Like, like kind of like the best way to make it up to somebody is just not to do that shit again.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of one of the philosophies, right? It's like, hey, I treated this person like fucking shit. Let's do my best to not do that to people anymore. You know, like
exactly.
That's how you make amends, really.
Yeah. That's the best apology is to change your behavior.
Exactly, right? You know, ultimately, like don't victimize anyone else. You know, like
or don't re-traumatize somebody.
Yeah,
yeah.
You know, not to say what we did wrong was the same thing. It's just that idea is, you know, I think good.
I would recommend caution against like assuming there's a general principle here by which all situations should be measured. Like
exactly.
Like particularism, I think, is the solution here. Like in my personal experience with the person who I acted most inappropriately towards, communicating that fact to her after the fact, even though she was not negative about the situation and didn't feel like I had done something inappropriately, still felt correct to me in terms of expressing to her that I felt that I was overly aggressive in that particular behavior. And so I think that we don't need to feel the pressure. Like we were saying earlier with like, men don't all need to cry in order to feel emotions. And like the solution for every single situation is not full disclosure or full anonymity. It's a balance based on the realities of the situation.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if that was the case, if everyone just said exactly what they like, what's on their mind
Right.
all the time? Like,
well, like fucking Immanuel Kant's like, tell the Nazis at the door that there are Jews in your attic, and you're like, come on, Kant, that's fucking stupid. So like, you gotta find a middle ground somewhere. But like at the same time, like, I lean very strongly towards like more communication is better than less communication, and whatever the consequences, accept those consequences, but like, don't hide from the reality of the situation, or we're not going to improve it at any point.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. We solved all the world's problems. We should just
hey, look at that. We improved.
There's one more review over here that like needs to be said over on the.
Me?
No. Yeah.
Me? Oh, I don't know. I just chewing on. I normally don't have nothing to say, but I don't really know. I'm trying to think about person who's done most bad things to me, and what I would do if he tried to approach me to make amends. And I would be very suspicious because I don't trust him, right? So
Which is fair.
Which is fair.
fair.
And it would be, I think, it's, in fact, my relationship with him taught me that actions are more important than what you say. So yeah, it would be a big time matter of, okay, well, live that then. And
prove it.
But what I've experienced in my life is that your knee-jerk intuitive way of treating other people is something that's very hard to change, and it's very hard to break, right? So if somebody who's serially undermining women at work says, I got to stop doing this, it's not just going to be a matter of, okay, I just got to stop, because you were never probably doing it totally unconsciously, right? Like, so people fall into the same relationship patterns and the same interaction patterns. So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
You have to go to
like narcissists, like Trump. Like they're just there are people who you have to be away from. Like there are people who you can help, and there are people who you can coexist with, and there are people who you need to make space between. And like that's totally fair.
Yeah.
You can't be friends with everybody. You can't,
Relationships are complicated.
Yeah.
Whether you want them to be or not.
Which is why we all need to live on our own, out in the woods somewhere.
Cabins.
That's why we need to huddle together with people who
Penguin style.
understand compassion for other.
Oh, well, there's that too, I guess.
Even though we live in a dark and uncaring void, there are these lovely people who we've spent several hours having a good time with, and that's valuable.
I think
Agreed.
so. I think that I can get behind that.
Yeah.
They're hard to find in Saskatchewan, but
there's so many.
These are the only 4 nice people into us 3 and Dave. That's it. You found us.
After reading the comment section of CBC in the last few days, I'm just
God.
There's no
Hey, someone elected Trudeau, so y'all aren't the only. Nice
well,
they weren't in our province.
They weren't here.
Yes, I Ralph Goodale. Hello.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
hello.
He's an anomaly.
He's an anomaly.
He's your locker room buddy, Dave.
He is. I've seen him naked.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've seen lots of
my member of
politicians naked.
parliament. Dave's seen him naked in the locker room.
Not
What?
harassment if you're same gender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well, we've
Whole
shared
separate can for-
we've shared a steam room together, so it's you
can't have clothes on in
Towels,
the steam room.
no towels. Paint the picture, Dave.
It's
towel free.
Some of these, I can't speak for him specifically. I don't want to out him, but some people in that locker room,
sweet.
they won't sit on a towel. Like they'll go in butt naked. And they'll sit right on the bench.
Anus on the bench.
Yeah, anus on the bench. Sweating it off.
I'm sympathetic. I'm pro nudity, so
I'm okay with nudity. I'm okay with that part. But if you're in the steam room, there's towel service right there.
Yeah,
just
sure.
Just put a towel down. That's what I do. Put a towel down. Sit on the towel.
Yeah,
because I don't want to sit on your bingo blot, right? Like I just.
If somebody leaves a bingo
chocolate
blot,
starfish.
Don't sit there.
I don't even want to sit on your invisible microscopic fucking bingo blot. Okay,
and I don't care. Again, let it hang out. I don't give a shit. But just put the towel down. And sit on the towel.
Put the towel down.
That's the least you can do.
There's parameters.
To be fair, if you're compulsively putting a towel down, it's not going to be an issue either way. But I respect your
That's true.
adherence to principle.
Yeah.
It's just.
I know, but then the blot's on the other side of my towel. It's gross. It's gross.
Well, yeah.
So the title for this episode could be "The Principle of the Towel."
Yes, tally.
Or the
Anus
anal bingo blotter.
blot.
I think
the anal blot would be better. That's a better
blot.
title.
Oh.
The tragedy of the Sonic Commons.
Under the bee. Yes.
Bingo. Anal bingo.
Anal bingo.
That sounds like a brainstorm title.
Oh Lord Almighty!
But to go back from
and it brings in Kingman, so it's like all
butt stuff.
bringing it around.
Ties it all together.
Oh yeah, I love when that happens.
But to wrap around from anuses to liberals.
To reach around.
To reach
around.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't vote for Justin Trudeau in Saskatchewan. Very few of us.
Very few of us.
People besides us
right.
didn't. Yeah.
Besides Ralph Goodale's constituents.
I voted for an NDP MP and he got in, so that's good. Aaron Weir.
So for those of us here on most of us at this table are actually too left leaning for Trudeau. You realize this, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely.
Great.
Trudeau's our fascist overlord.
If you're a neoliberal cuck, then I respect you. It's fine.
We literally did a whole episode of this of brainstorm, not a whole, maybe an hour and a half or whatever, talking about why Trudeau was so bad. And I think I was Trudeau's only defender, and I don't even really like him that much. I mean, he's all right, but
that was a bad episode though.
That was a bad episode.
Why was it so bad?
Because those guys brought up the stupidest things.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have legitimate
They didn't have
criticism.
interesting.
You
criticism.
unfriended them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the
You mean
difference.
legitimate criticisms like he uses yoga as an excuse for not being.
No, they
Proper.
didn't focus on the things that I cared about with Trudeau. To me, election reform really pisses me off still. And I'm still mad at him about
That's
it.
fair.
But
That's fair.
I don't even remember what they brought up with Trudeau.
They brought up a lot of superficial well, he
Muslim
says
thing.
this and he says he's a feminist, but
Yeah, he's a feminist.
this thing that he did isn't equal to feminism.
He shook hands with the Saudi Arabia guy, so he's not feminist. And I'm like,
That's right.
I'm like, what the
I mean, if we want to talk of
Did he shake hands with
philosophy, I
Duterte,
disagree
though?
with his philosophy of pro-capitalism, and I disagree with a lot of that shit. But, I mean... The
You work
arguments.
in the oil industry. You're against capitalism.
Corey's
Sounds like
an
a whole other
anomaly,
episode
though.
to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I think about this all the time. There's the world I live in, and there's the world I want to live in. You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I can
The human condition.
yes.
Well, and that's the same with our political leaders. Like there's like the ideal leader I would love to have.
Yes.
And then there's like me understanding that this is politics and
Yes.
and stuff happens and yeah, you know what? Like we have to tread lightly with certain people around the world. Like we can't just go barging in and like criticize everything that Saudi Arabia is doing and barging into Russia and saying like, you know, like it just doesn't
or
work
the
like
Philippines,
that.
yeah.
Or
And
North Korea, hey?
Well, yeah, like honestly though, like it's not to say that it's not to say we need to be complicit, but at the same time, like you got to understand that political leaders are playing by a very nuanced game.
Yeah.
Well, they have to be
Well, can you-
diplomatic. There has to be diplomacy.
Well, I believe that Aaron, the leader of Aaron's country, actually proves that they don't have to be diplomatic.
Well, there you go.
Like, you may want
it
to
would
write a
be
letter to
better.
your president.
It would be better.
You may want to write a letter, just maybe trying to convince him to be a little more diplomatic. A little less
Diplomacy isn't
boom
the
boom
only
with the
option.
North Korea, please. Thank you. Just write
We're
him a
all
letter.
sitting around
Write him a
waiting
letter.
for Robert Mueller to do his goddamn job.
Yeah.
I don't know how to tell you
Well, for real,
otherwise,
for
but
real.
like the leaders of the quote unquote free world are like sitting around waiting for the person who we shouldn't have elected to be removed from office.
Yeah, we're waiting up here for sure. We're all
That's
Good
definitely
luck.
the Canadian perspective.
I personally can't wait for President Pence. It's going to be amazing.
Tell me
so
more
good.
about how this isn't the worst of all possible timelines. You're waiting for Donald Trump to be removed so that Mike Pence can be your president.
It'll be so much better.
Handmaiden's tail in a suit can be your president.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Well, at least I
there goes
can't.
my
At least I
uterus.
can't have dinner with him.
No.
It's better and worse than everything you're going to experience. Welcome to your life.
I feel like he's more of a George W. Bush kind of, but more religious sort of throwback, like dumb like
And
Bush.
a shittier
like,
painter.
who's a shittier painter,
I'm
Pence or
like-
Bush?
I don't know. Pence is a
I'm
We
gonna
could have a
guess
whole
Pence.
conversation about how the Mike Pence, like, don't be in a room alone with women ideology is like a bullshit solution to all the problems we've been discussing for past 2 hours. But
Yeah.
like, you know, it doesn't matter because if he gets put in office after Trump is
Actually,
removed, it will be after violence and like he'll be a lame duck and like he won't be effective.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
think? Like the chances are that the next election cycle will just be underway by the time all this shit happens. It won't be relevant. You know, like it'll just be like just elect him out. Like,
I mean, next year the midterms are going to happen in the midst of like Mueller indicting, Flynn and Clovis, and then probably Jeff Sessions at some point next year. Like these are the things that are going to happen next year while the Republicans are trying to defend their majorities in Congress. And then if they lose those majorities in Congress, Donald Trump will be impeached and there will be violence.
so why do you think violence is a foregone conclusion if he's impeached?
Because
Is it the Second Amenders or what is it?
No, because the Republicans haven't been willing to sack up and impeach him when they should, so it's going to fall to Democrats to do so, and then it's going to be a whole deep state narrative about the Democrats impeaching him when he shouldn't be impeached, and there will be at least some percentage of militia members within his constituency.
Yeah, so it's the Second
will-
Amendmenters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Second Amendment, the sovereign citizens who will take violence against the government as the only reasonable solution to a situation in which their person is being removed via government overreach. That's the situation. And then, it won't be a full-out civil war, but they'll cause some violence, and then Pence will be this awkward president for a year or two, and then he will lose to Elizabeth Warren. And then who knows? And then 20 years of Americans hating each other because one side of the group hated the other side enough to get that removed.
You guys already hate each other. It's There's no, that ship has sailed, my friend.
Get ready for it.
We hate each other from Nixon, which was so long ago, and this is going to refresh it in the worst of ways. So look forward to that.
Okay.
The schizophrenic.
We love watching the debauchery in your country. It's hilarious. It's very entertaining.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
I don't.
Just no nukes. No nukes.
Yeah, nothing.
Don't attract any nukes. We're right beside you. Okay.
I mean, like, Kim Jong-un doesn't have the nukes that can reach you. You'll be fine. So,
Yet.
You and the Australians can, like, enjoy the fact that you are slightly less terrible than us. Congratulations.
A lot less terrible.
All right. In your case, substantially less terrible.
Let's quickly do a short break here, another 2 minutes, and then we'll come back to
insulting Americans.
Maybe we'll do Angela's story,
insulting
and
Americans.
then we'll talk some more about whatever.
All right.
Okay.
If you like what we're doing and want to help us keep the lights on, go become a patron at patreon.com/Brainstorm Podcast. You can hear the bonus half hour that we record every episode and get a shout out when you support the show. Become a patron for just $1 an episode at patreon.com/Brainstorm Podcast. Or you can support the show by ordering a t-shirt, mug, or other gear from our store at caffeepress.ca/Brainstorm Podcast Gear. If you can't afford to become a patron or buy gear, then why not give us a rating or write a review on iTunes or Stitcher? Every rating makes it easier for people to find us. Thanks for your support.
We are given one life, full of billions of small and large decisions. To be somebody, to change, to be kind, to give hope, to become a better person, and to leave a lasting impact on this planet. It is a decision to be made every single day while your heart is still beating. We've made our decision. Absence of Clothing, atheist and science-based apparel and merchandise, donating 50% of our profits to charity. Look good and feel good, without God. Check us out at absenceofclothing.com and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest for discount codes and other sweet swag.
Use the code BRAINSTORM at absenceofclothing.com and get 10% off. The Hardcore Skeptic Examines is a bi-monthly documentary-style podcast that includes interviews, research, and commentary from your host, Cory Johnston. That's me. As the host of the Brainstorm podcast, I've spent the last 3+ years trying to spread critical thinking and skepticism while having fun. This project is intended to look at some of those same topics covered by Brainstorm, but a bit deeper. With the long intervals between episodes and the long format, I'm hoping to provide good information that educates as well as entertains. Check out my Patreon for more details at www.patreon.com/hardcoreskeptic or follow my Twitter at hardcoreskeptic.
Hey everybody, we're the Utah Outcasts, and we want you to listen to our show.
We're a rowdy bunch of super liberal atheists that reside in the state of Utah, who bring you current events and featured content on a semi-weekly basis.
Whether it's us poking fun at the religious right or ranting at the world in which we all reside, we want to borrow your ears for about an hour twice a week.
Hey, and don't forget to tell them the best part about it.
Oh yeah!
The show's free for all.
It is indeed. So if you like free, we're available through iTunes, Overcast, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Play, Patreon, and even in full HD video via YouTube. Give us a listen. You won't be sorry.
All right. So it looks like we have like 17 minutes left after the commercial break. So we're going to do Angela's story quick. We're going to run through some... Uh-oh. Angela's mic isn't working.
Oh, it's on.
Is it what?
Oh, no. Something's wrong.
Check there might be a switch on the top of it. You might turn it off, Baxton.
Hello.
There we go.
How did that happen?
Thank God I was worried.
That's super weird. My sexy voice couldn't be broadcast to the masses.
I usually don't allow you to have those switches on your mics, but that's a good mic, so I wanted to use it. Anyway.
So we're gonna run through Angela's story as quick as we can.
Super sweet. So apparently atheists aren't horrible people because they're helping the homeless in Spartanburg, South Carolina. There's a group called the Atheist Alliance Helping the Homeless, and they gather goods all month long, and then the third Saturday of every month, they give it to people that need it, and there's no religion required.
How do they do that without God motivating them by a promise of heaven?
Well, because they care about their fellow human. They care about their fellow human, and you can actually chip in. They have a website. They have a Patreon site by the looks of it. So yeah, you can buy items from their wish list. You can buy emergency sleeping bags. You can buy matches. You can buy bounce sheets. You can buy hot hands hand warmers. You can buy, I don't know what that is. You can buy sanitary pads for the ladies who still menstruate.
Yeah.
So lots of things. You know,
Very
all
nice.
important things.
Cool.
So, and also there's even a Christian dude that volunteered with this group because he, you know, liked what they were doing. So,
But if your daily works are not done through a relationship to God,
they're but filthy rags.
then
right?
the message we have to you is that
Is
you're
that
going
you-
to hell.
You've listened to that bumper way too many times.
Apparently, hell is going to be filled with very wonderful, kind, generous, helpful people because I don't know. I can't find any other reason. You want to say something?
Have y'all ever read 36 Arguments for the Existence of God? It's a Rachel or Rebecca Goodman. It's a
Is it a
brilliant
book?
sort of it's a fiction book about the main character writes a book about all the arguments for the existence of God, but also a book about how like belief in God is not rationally based in a non-derogatory kind of way. That belief in God is emotive based, and that's something we have to come to terms with. And in the course of the book, he debates a pro-religious philosopher who argues about morality and like makes the kind of argument y'all are sort of the divine command theory of like, why would you need a God's divine command to do the right thing? And what he says is really beautiful, where he says like, look, you do the right thing because it's the right fucking thing. Like after decades of ethics work, like what I believe is you do the right thing because it's the right thing. That's the right reason for doing the right thing. And to talk about the right thing in terms of, you know, what a superior being says that the right thing is to do and do what they say no matter what you believe is to make a fucking hash of morality.
Yeah.
And that like morality is the most important thing we could be engaging in, and to make it a proxy game of like what this supreme being or these old people many, many years ago said instead of what we feel is true and right is garbage.
I think that's yeah.
You know, humans react to ethical. Okay, so I read a study, and I'm using it on my son now. They asked young children. They put them in a situation where they were going to tell a lie, and before they asked them what they had done, they said, just remember that if you tell the truth, you'll feel good about yourself. And the kids they told that to were way, way, way more likely to tell you the truth than the kids that you told, if you don't tell the truth, you're going to get in trouble, or they weren't told anything. They just told, tell me the truth. So humans actually do respond to, and I work with my son, think about how good you're going to feel in your heart. He's like, you're right. I did knock over that box. And I'm like, yes, you did.
It's it's like the moral equivalent of the difference between telling a kid you're smart and telling a kid you succeeded because you worked hard.
Yeah.
Like modern understanding of human development says, teach the kid that like hard work produces good results rather than like innate behavior.
Yeah.
And like the same thing with morality. Teach the kid that like habituation of trying to do the right thing is more important than your innate moral features independent of like your behavior.
I know what my son would say to that. He would say, what's habituation?
You said bitch.
I like, you know, phrase the language appropriately. When I was a kid, like my weird uncle said once around me that like Aaron speaks in polysyllabic sentences, and I turned around and like 4 and said, what's polysyllabic sentences? And he said, oh, that's not good. So like,
See,
yeah, but like,
I raised my kid to use big words. She uses large words.
Right.
Rachel's charming. She's so funny. She's very
teach him to use the right words when it's the right time to use them.
Well, and that's my plan. I mean, she was trying to figure out what to bring for F show and tell, and she's like, I'm thinking about words that start with F, and she's like, what the fuck? And she's 5. So it's like, you can only use those words if you learn how to use them in the right circumstances.
Yeah.
So
right.
I mean, I can't falter for that. I don't get mad. Should we end it there?
We got to
need to
this
wrap
out.
it up.
We got to wrap this up. We have a 30-minute bonus content after I do my wrap up. If you still want to stick around for the last little bit, it's totally
sure. I can hang around for a little bit more. Yeah, why not?
You don't have to.
This is the longest guest interview we've ever had.
This guy.
This has been fun.
We're bleeding you dry.
Yeah, but like I can't go too late because like my poor wife who wants me to eventually come to bed. But like, yes, let's go a little bit further.
Okay. I'm gonna run out this clock with. We got a little bit of listener feedback on the Patreon page.
Nice.
The Utah Outcasts commented, and it's Chris who runs their account.
Yes.
Holy shit! On the last episode of Shift to Reason Radio, he says, I absolutely love this episode from you folks. As Cory heard during his interview with me last week, music is a huge thing for me, and this was catnip. Great job. That's nice. All we have for our Patreon or feedback, I mean. And for Patreon, the Utah Outcasts are now patrons of us.
Nice.
There have been 3 patron-only posts this month, and in addition to early access to full-length ad-free episodes, as well as my other show, The Hardcore Skeptic Examines, any extra episodes for Brainstorm, and the monthly Skeptic Voices episode. If you haven't yet, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast and get your patron bonuses, including the after show that goes to patrons only after the morning after the live broadcast. A huge thanks to Lisa, Gumby, and Rob for being our top patrons. What? We have no reviews, which is weird because Chris from the Utah Outcasts said that he reviewed the show on iTunes. So
it takes a few days. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't show up early enough. Ollie Olson gave us 5 stars on Facebook and said, great podcast, get into it. Politics, atheism, and current affairs with attitude. Thanks to everyone who gives us a rating and a review. I have not done a Hardcore Skeptic episode in approximately a month. Starting to feel
Don't you feel bad about that in your heart, Cory?
I absolutely do, actually.
Judgy. So judgy.
You can find all of those episodes at thehardcoreskeptic.com. We're still hoping to get enough for a conference, but right now it's looking rather bleak. If you want to support a conference in Saskatchewan, then you can do that at gofundme.com/shift-2-reason-conference-2018.
I haven't even looked at that thing recently.
Oh, it hasn't even, because nobody's giving any money to it.
I need to post it. I need to post, I need to go to the media about that, maybe.
Do it, Angela.
Oh,
do it.
I saw that.
Our local people do not want a conference bad enough. I'm starting to just feel like that's the case.
Yeah.
So
you have a digital conference right here, though.
That's true. That is true.
Oh, I just had a thought. Okay. We'll talk about it later.
You can check out the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com and our website, brainstormblog.net. Thanks to our financial supporters, Will, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Lachlan, Lisa, Magnus, Michael, Nathan, Positively Skeptical, Rob, Stephanie, and now the Utah Outcasts. If you want to join their ranks and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. You can join us live every second week when we broadcast live on Spreaker. You can find us at brainstormradio.net. Our next guest is Zach Law from the Zach Religion Cast. That's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you, Aaron. And thanks to GW.
Thank you so much.
For
It's been a blast.
joining us. You can find out more about their podcast at voidpod.com. I'll put a link in the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com. Our regular notes at brainstormblog.net are still a work in progress. I am looking for people who will help me finish those. I will pay you. Yeah, so that's that. Thanks to Dave for our intro music. Thanks to Alex Kepper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for the intro and some of our ads. And thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music, which we didn't play today. You can find his stuff over at
We'll get some hi-hats.
There we go.
We'll get some hi-hats.
There we go. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info on our website, brainstormblog.net. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, share the show, and spread the word. For live listeners, stick around for the after show. You can find us on Brainstorm. English is a thing I do.
English.
Brainstormafterhours.com and listen to the bonus content before it goes patron only. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel, any guests, or anyone associated with the people. This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel, any guests, or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Cory, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors. We just wanted to say thanks to everyone who listens to us, shares the show, gives us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or supports us through Patreon and Gumroad. We don't have a lot of interactions with our listeners, but what we have had proves that we attract some of the best people around. Smart, kind, and cool. An audience truly worthy of the titles hardcore and woo-free. Thanks for helping us make the world a smarter place.